So in this video, I'll go through the process of making all these Niagara particle effects. So let's see at the main explosion. And for this one, so this is the main explosion, and it consists of these different um, emitters. So the main thing in um, this particle system is this main explosion, which is this. It has this watermark in the corner because I could not render it without the watermark, but yeah, it has the watermark if you haven't noticed. Um, so this is the flip book. So what I did here is just to make the an emitter with spawn burst instantaneous with spawn count of 1 and spawn time is 0. And in the initial particle, I set the lifetime to 1 second. So the whole flip book will start and finish in within the 1 second. And position offset I set to 120 because if we see the material and if we come here and uh, make the cutout of all this spreadsheet, uh, this is the 0, 0, but I want it to be start from this bottom part. So I changed the shape look, the position to 120. I moved it and checked which would be the best position, and the 120 was the best position from 0 to this to get this bottom part on the pivot, and set the mask mode to 0.75 to 2 to random value, and set the sprite size to minimum to 700 and maximum to 800 because I want this explosion to be massive. So yeah, and then uh, this the it spawns in the shape location with the spherical shape, and I set the radius to 18 because first I thought I could add like more, like three three of the explosion and set it on different scale, but it didn't look good. But it did look good with the explosion in the air, but not with this one. So then particle state, kill particle when the lifetime is finished, and scale color. So RGB would be the default, but the alpha, uh, it will in the beginning it will be 1, and over time when it goes to from 1 to 0 to 1 second, the alpha will be goes to 0, which will make it transparent. So you can see that opacity goes down when we go to the 1 second timer. And then I use a sub UV animation thing and added this thing from here. So which will make the start frame from 0 to 63 because we in this here we set the sprite render, and in the sub UV we check this option sub UV blending enabled and set the image size to 8 by 8 because we have 8 by 8 sprite sheet, and once we set this 8 by 8, we go come here and add the sub UV animation. And once we add this, we set the start frame and end frame, and we can even change the speed of this animation using linear to curve. So if we set it to curve, we can even change the animation speed by using curve. It will go fast and then slow down this, but I think the linear would be good for this one. So yeah, this is the main explosion. Then the second thing is this dust cloud, which occurs in the middle part. So this dust cloud is just a sprite sheet of a falling smoke, which is this falling smoke. And what this thing is doing is just it has the spawn burst instantaneous, and it spawns of minimum of 4 and maximum of 6 with the random range integer. And after that, in the initialized particle, here this. And for the color, I set the random hue saturation value and set these values. I played around with this value just to get the some correct color. And then I set the position offset to 20 the X, and sprite size I set it to 150 to 250, and rotation angle minimum from 1 to 10. So they they spawn in like different rotation every time. And then I added the velocity. So and then set the velocity speed scale to random range float to 50 to 90, and it looks. And then in the particle state, it's just common like kill particles when lifetime is finished, and scale sprite size. So in the beginning, the sprites are really small, and then eventually it will go bigger in size. So set the sprite size to 0 to 1 over time. And in the scale color, same as the other one, as the time goes by, the opacity will go down. And then gravity force, set the gravity to -100. So it looks like they're falling down. Then set the drag so it slowly falls down, and it has a like a velocity drag. And sub UV animation, which is the same with as this thing, and use the sprite renderer and 8 by 8 sprite sheet. So we have this thing, and the third thing is the shock wave, which is this one, which is using the like torus shape to spawn the sprite sheet. So I set the spawn burst instantaneous and set the spawn count to 30 to 40, and set the particle randomness from 0 to 1. And in the initial particle, I set the lifetime to 2 seconds to 3 seconds. And for the mass 0.75 to 2. And sprite size attribute, it will go from 40 to 70. And rotation goes from 0 to 360. So they are different, rotated every time. And shape location, I use the ring disk, this one. So it spawns like the shockwave ring, and set the ring radius to 25, and point attraction force and attraction strength to minus negative 250. So it doesn't just like spawn and goes out, it slowly goes out and then it's like this. And this is initial force. Then added the drag of minimum 6 to 8. So it doesn't go directly, it just has it slows down over time. It has drag. Then same as other scale color. Set the color to default, but scale the alpha from 0 to from 1 to 0 over time, so it disappear after over time. And scale sprite size. So the sprite size is lower in the beginning, but then over time it it scales up. Right? And then sub UV animation, and there are dynamic material parameter which are controlled from the shader. And this is the sprite sheet, which is this smoke puff sprite sheet. Then we have these pillars, these explosion pillars, which are this one. So these are also emitting from one point to outside, and this is using cone shape. So it is also spawn burst instantaneous, and minimum values are 6 and maximum are 12. And initialized particle, the lifetime is set from 1 to minimum from 0.5 to 1 second. And sprite size set to non-uniform, and set the value of 415 to 0.45. And shape location, it spawns from a sphere, and sphere radius minimum 25 to 45. And I set the hemisphere distribution of 0.7 because we don't want any this explosion pillar spawning uh, downs that are facing downside. So if I set it to 1, yeah, it spawns the negative z direction as well, but we don't want it because it's uh, the explosion is occurring on the ground. So we'll set it on 0.7, so that way we can only spawn the upward direction. And then we add the velocity. So it it has the velocity of going from middle to outside, and set the velocity to multiply float from 256, and this random range 0.65 to 1. So, and these are the dynamic material parameter. Sub UV animation, color, scale sprite size. Sprite size will be increased from 0 to 1 over time. Then the drag, so it will slow down over time. And this is the sprite render. These are the sprite sheet for the. And for this sprite sheet, it's 10 by 8. So all this together will look like this. Now we have this thing, but we want to we want debris and dust particles. So for the debris, I have these meshes. I have these different meshes that I made in quickly sculpted in ZBrush and then just roughly decimated it for 0.04% and then just unwrap the UVs and apply the tiling material. So we have four of these variations, and these are basically just the duplicates one with some settings changed. So these are the large pieces. So if I isolate them, the first one goes in the ring shape like this, and they are also spawn burst instantaneous. So the lifetime is 1 to 2 seconds, and then they'll just shrink down. And shape location is set to ring and disk. So and set the ring radius to 50. So mm, and added the rotational velocity to random range vector. So we have rotation velocity as well. So they rotates more time, and then just the normal velocity which goes from 900 to 2000. And then we have gravity force, which is negative 980, which is 9.8 meter per second square. And we have drag from 1 to 2, and then scale alpha from 1 to 0, and then scale mesh size that goes from 0. Uh, that goes from 1 to 0. So from 0.5 it starts shrinking down, but from 0 to 0.5 their size is 1. And then at the collision, so it actually collide with the floor, and set the bounce restitution to 0.3 and friction to 0.4 and friction during bounce 0.1. These values are I had to like play around with and see which one looks more like debris physics then. And then set this the mesh renderer, which are these four meshes, and then duplicated the same emitter over here and change some value. But with this one, it doesn't go on this disk format. It goes like this in the spherical one. So all the settings are mostly same. It's just the velocity mode goes to cone, and what are the other things? Yeah, this velocity will be in the cone, and here the shape location is ring. Here I didn't use the shape location one. I just added the velocity, and this velocity would be from the cone. So it goes from here to there. And these are all mostly the same settings, which has the gravity enable, and then it shrunk down after the time. Same goes with the smaller particle. Uh, all these particles scales get smaller when we when I duplicated them. So I made them this one really small. These are big and these are large. And then the sprite sheet. So these are the dust one. So these are two dust particle. I duplicated the same one and changed some values. So first one is the dust particle that starts from the point and then it goes like this. These settings are same as this medium pieces one, which is the add velocity of in cone, and then as gravity force drag, but I added curl noise first, so it has some randomness noise going on when they are falling. Oh, and use the sprite renderer with this one. So in this one, there are only four sprite sheet, 2 by 2. So instead of using the sprite animation like this, uh, sub UV animation, so instead of this, in this one, we use this one. Uh, mm, yeah, sub image index, where make the random float integer from 0 to 3. So it will choose randomly 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will choose randomly any one of these four. And the second one is the shockwave one, and then use the sparks which are going from middle to outside, which has kind of same settings but change some of them. And these are the other sparks which goes like this. So it's like this one and this one goes similar, and this one and this sparks goes similar. And I have the light render, which is nothing but just a light renderer, and its color set this intensity to like this high, and lifetime mean is 0.3 to 1, and scale the RGB from this color to this color, and set the alpha from 1 to 0 over time. So all of them combined will give this result. And there is the another explosion, which is explosion in the air. So with this one, oh, I didn't cover the distortion part in the other one, but these are the same distortion. So I'll cover in this one. So with this explosion in the air one, this is the main explosion spreadsheet, and these are like 3D spreadsheets. Uh, uh, three particles spawning or six. So in the spawn burst instantaneous, I spawn the six particles. So there are six sprite sheets and animation playing randomly. And then in the initial particle, set the lifetime to 2, and here 0.5 to 1. So all of them are like random. Set the shape location to sphere, and set the sphere radius to 5, and then add the velocity from point to 256 and set the random float value from 0.75 to 1, and then add the velocity. So it goes move from one point to another. Then set the dynamic material parameter, which are which we can control from the material. Then sub UV animation, which is 8 by 8. Then wind force, which winds speed scale set to 256, and scale sprite size from 0 to 1 over time, and sprite rotation rate, so it rotates every time. And then we add a drag, so the rotates velocity will slow down, and then add a gravity force, and then the sprite renderer. Then these are the pillars which are same as the other one, but here instead of using it cone, is it using it as a hemisphere. Here I set the set the hemisphere distribution to 1 to 1, so it spawns everywhere in the whole sphere equal area. And yeah, there is a sprites render, and these are the sparks. So these sparks just spawn from middle to, and then they have curl, noise, gravity force, wind force, aerodynamic drag, and it just goes around. And these are also this also have the same settings, like uh, the particle alpha will go down from 1 to 0 over time. And this is the light renderer, same as the other. And this is the distortion, which is, you can see here. So this is the sphere. So this is a mesh renderer where I imported the sphere, and then in the material use the heat distortion material, which is this one, which is just the panning normal of the water view. And then with this mesh, set the spawn burst instantaneous and spawn count to 1. And in the initialized particle, set the lifetime to 0.75. And then in the particle and uniform sprite size to 50. And then scale mesh size. So mesh will start from 1 to 5. So it will scale from 1 to 5 over time. And over time scale color, I set the scale alpha from 0 to 1, 1 to 0. So it goes disappear after over time. And this is just a mesh render. Yeah, like this. So all together will look something like this. And in the action, we can in the action it looks like this. and in slow motion it looks like this. So this was slow motion. It will just, and if we have the change simulation, and if I turn on the slow motion,